Sacred threads, a journey through the world's religions. Before temples rose or scriptures sang, before names like Yahweh, Buddha, or Allah echoed through history, humanity looked up at the stars and asked, "Why are we here?" Sacred Threads is a sweeping 15-part audio odyssey into the heart of our deepest yearnings, for meaning, for order, for the divine. From the silent meditations of Jain monks to the cosmic battles of Zoroastrian myth, from the fire of Sinai to the path beneath the Bodhi tree, this series traces the origins, stories, and living truths of the world's great religions, and the new ones still being born. You'll walk with prophets, philosophers, and skeptics. You'll witness the rise of sacred texts and hear the whispered doubts of those who walked away. And through it all, you'll discover not just what others believe, but what belief itself reveals about us. Whether you're faithful, skeptical, or just curious, this is more than a history of religions. It's a mirror, and the question it reflects is eternal. What do you worship when the world falls silent?
The dawn of religion.
Episode 14. Many Paths, One Search, Comparative Themes. A World's Religions audiobook series production. Narrator's Prelude. A child looks up at the night sky and asks 3 questions older than language. Where did all this come from? What happens when we die? How should I live? Those questions are small enough to fit in a breath and large enough to hold a civilization. Episode 14 gathers the threads we've been following: Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism, Daoism, Confucianism, Zoroastrianism, Indigenous traditions, and modern movements, and ties them into 5 comparative knots. We will not flatten differences. We will listen for patterns, the rhymes of the sacred, without sanding away edge or accent. Where necessary, we'll slow down, name complexities, and honor the ways communities disagree with themselves as much as with each other. A practical note for listeners: when we say tradition, hear a chorus, not a soloist. Each voice carries regional, historical, and doctrinal harmonies and dissonances. What follows are constellations, stars that many see, even as the lines connecting them vary by culture and time. 1. Origins and destinies. Creation, death, afterlife. Creation. One beginning or many. Judaism, Christianity, Islam. In the Abrahamic family, creation is not an accident but an act, willed, spoken, loved into being by a singular God. In Hebrew poetry, a breath moves across waters. In Christian prologue, the Logos, divine word, says, "Let there be," in a key that makes galaxies. In the Quran, God is Al-Khaliq, the creator, who says, "Kun," be, and it is. Theologies here wrestle with how a transcendent God relates to a temporal world. Some emphasize creatio ex nihilo, creation from nothing, guarding God's freedom and the world's contingency. Others speak of creatio continua, a continuing creativity in which existence is sustained moment by moment. The moral of the story is not only that the world is made, but that it is good, and that time has a direction, from origin to fulfillment, from promise to covenant, from revelation to judgment. History becomes a stage on which justice can be delayed but not finally denied. Zoroastrianism. On a plateau between empires, a different monotheistic imagination took shape. Ahura Mazda fashions a good creation opposed by Druge, the lie. Time, in several classical tellings, unfolds in a schema of 12,000 years, an initial perfect creation, a period of assault, and a final victory in Frasciocaretti, the world renewed. The cosmos is a battleground, but not of equal forces. The lie is parasitic, not primordial. Humans are enlisted. Their free choices tip the scales of truth. Fire burns at the heart of worship, not as idol, but as a sign of clarity. Hindu traditions. Here, multiplicity is not a problem to be solved, but a resource for wisdom. The ancient Rigveda sings of Purusa, a cosmic being whose sacrificial dismemberment seeds the world. Another hymn, the Nasadya Sukta, whispers an agnostic creation song so subtle it ends by wondering whether even the highest knows the first beginning. Later Upanishads speak of the One, Brahman, from whom the many appear like waves on the sea. Puranic narratives give the ever-recurring cycle its faces: Brahma the creator, Vishnu the sustainer, Shiva the recycler, dissolver, while philosophers debate whether the many are ultimately real, Dvaita, qualified expressions of the One, Vishishtadvaita, or a shimmering superimposition, Advaita. A favorite image: the universe breathes, expanding and contracting across cosmic days and nights beyond counting. Creation here is less a one-time event and more a rhythm. Buddhism and Jainism. Step to the side and a different grammar appears. Buddhism sees no need to posit a creator. The universe runs on pratityasamutpada, dependent arising. Things begin and end because causes and conditions assemble and disperse. Worlds arise and pass in countless cycles, kalpas, with beings moving through spheres, hells, animal realms, human precincts, divine heavens, depending on karma. Jainism maps the loka, the universe, as beginningless and endless, with jiva, soul, and ajava, non-soul, in interaction. Here too there is no maker god. The cosmos is a moral machine, and a field of liberation for those who learn to move without harm. Sikhism. In the opening, Mul Mantra, Ik Oankar, the one without second, is named as creator, fearless, without enmity, beyond time, non-incarnated, self-existent, realized by grace. Creation occurs through Shabad, the divine word, yet the Sikh accent falls on Hukam, divine order, Naam, the name, and Siva, service. Metaphysics matters, but as a backdrop for ethical memory and justice. Daoism and Confucian thought: in Daoism, the Tao that can be spoken is not the constant Tao, yet from the unnamable springs the 10,000 things. The world is not commanded but unfolds through Ziran, spontaneity, naturalness. Confucian thinking is less about cosmic prologues and more about cosmic alignment. Heaven, Tian, Earth, and humanity form a triad. Human flourishing depends on embodying Ren, humanness, and practicing Li, ritual propriety. Origins are acknowledged, but what matters is order and harmony in the present. Indigenous traditions. In traditions rooted to land and lineage, creation often arrives as a placing, a story of how our people came to be here with these relations. Among the Haudenosaunee, Sky Woman falls through a hole in the sky, lands on Turtle's back, and co-creates the world with animals. In parts of Australia, the dreaming is not a past, but a parallel time, an origin that undergirds the present and resurfaces in ceremony and songlines. In many African cosmologies, the high god sets the world's patterns and delegates to a network of spirits, or orishas, as in Yoruba tradition, who tend domains of nature and society. Human and more than human kinship is the cosmological key. Mountains, rivers, animals, and ancestors form a community. Modern secular views. Finally, one may tell the story in terms of cosmic expansion, stellar evolution, abiogenesis, and the slow choreography of life under natural selection. No mind at the switch, or at least none required by the equations. Meaning becomes a human project rather than a cosmic property. Yet even here, people experience awe that borders liturgical, planetaria as cathedrals, launch pads as altars to human curiosity. A comparative thread, whether by decree, breath, rhythm, unfolding, or emergence, each account places us in relation to God, to law, to order, to kin, to causality. Each invites a stance: gratitude, vigilance, play, humility. or responsibility. Death and afterlife, sleep, return, or renewal. Judaism. Early strata speak of Sheol, a shadowy realm where distinctions fade. Over time, hopes diversify. Some texts anticipate the resurrection of the dead, the Olam Haba, the world to come, or a messianic age of justice. Others contemplate the immortality of the righteous. Rabbinic conversations often stress this worldly holiness, sanctifying time, speech, and deed, while allowing a range of hopes about what comes next. The Sitzim Liban of Jewish ritual around death, Tahara, purification of the body, Shiva, 7 days of mourning, Kaddish, mourner's prayer, forms a school of grief that binds community to memory. Christianity, here, the resurrection of the body stands at the center. Not escape from matter, but its transformation. Diverse visions unfold. Heaven as communion with God. Hell as the tragic integrity of freedom turned in on itself. Purgation as a process of healing for those aligned with love yet unfinished. Some theologians emphasize theosis, participation in divine life. Others explore universalist hope that God might ultimately reconcile all. Across the spectrum, the dead are remembered in prayer, named at Eucharist, and entrusted to mercy. Islam death opens into Barzakh, an intermediate bar. A day of judgment arrives. Deeds are weighed, paradise and hell are described with sensuous imagery and moral gravity. The scales are flanked by divine attributes, Rahman, the merciful, and Adl, the just. Believers walk a bridge finer than a hair, sharper than a sword. The prophet's intercession is hoped for. God's mercy is said to outstrip wrath. Funeral rites, ghusl, washing, kafan, shrouding, and janaza, prayer, enact equality and entrustment. Zoroastrianism. At death, the soul encounters the Chinvat bridge. It widens for the truthful and narrows for the deceitful. In some accounts, a maiden personifying one's deeds appears, beautiful or foul depending on a life's ledger. In the final renewal, Frashokareti, all creation is purified. Even metals melt, not to destroy but to refine. The world's end is a healing. Hindu traditions. Samsara, the cycle of birth and death, turns according to karma. The goal is moksha, release. Paths vary. In Advaita, one realizes non-duality. Atman, self, was always Brahman, the absolute. In Vishishtadvaita and Bhakti traditions, the self in loving devotion abides in God's nearness, Vaikuntha with Vishnu, Kailasa with Shiva, or the sweet realm of Krishna. Rituals such as Antiesti, last rites, and Shraddha, ancestor offerings, weave family, cosmos, and release. Buddhism. Rebirth happens without an immortal soul, like a flame passed from candle to candle. The aim is nirvana, an unbinding from greed, hatred, and delusion. In Theravada, the Arhat's liberation shines. In Mahayana, bodhisattvas vow to delay final nirvana to assist all beings. In Vajrayana, Bardo teachings, Tibetan lineages, map post-death states as opportunities for recognition of mind's nature. Monastics and laity cultivate merit for the deceased. Chanting names such as Amitabha in Pure Land traditions expresses a trust that grace meets effort. Jainism. Every Jaiva carries karmic matter that veils omniscience. Ethical rigor, ahimsa, non-violence, satya, truth, asteya, non-stealing, brahmacharya, chastity, aparigraha, non-possession, polishes the soul until it ascends, freed of all karmic binds, to the Siddha Shila, the abode of the liberated. Death rituals respect the soul's journey. A controversial but venerable practice, salakana, fasting to death, is framed by some Jains as a final discipline of detachment when death is near and medical options exhausted. Sikhism. Life and death are Hukam's domain. The soul transmigrates under karma, but liberation comes by Nam through grace and seva. The Sikh funeral, often called Antam Sanskar, is simple. Hymns, remembrance, the Arda's prayer, and the communal meal, langar. Grief is held in song and service, rather than speculative detail about heaven and hell. Daoism. The spectrum runs from humble ancestor continuity to intricate programs of inner alchemy seeking longevity or symbolic immortality. Xian immortals populate tales as exemplars of harmony with the Tao. Death may be seen as transformation within the Kui field rather than a journey to a moral courtroom. Modern movements, Latter-day Saints, LDS, describe spirit prisons and paradises, proxy baptisms for the dead, graded heavens, celestial, terrestrial, telestial, and sealed eternal families. Jehovah's Witnesses anticipate a restored earth under God's kingdom, with a limited number, often understood as 144,000, in heaven. Seventh-day Adventists emphasize soul sleep and resurrection. Wicca speaks of the Summerland. Baha'is describe ascent through worlds of God, states of proximity to the divine marked by moral growth. Humanists call us to live so that our legacy, in people, projects, ecosystems, bears good fruit. What these teach together. Some traditions hope for time's redemption, others for escape from the wheel, others for a life made precious by finitude. All answer grief with a grammar of continuity, of persons, virtues, relationships, or the world itself. And all, in their best hours, invite the living to get busy here, to reconcile, to repair, to love while breath remains. 2. Ritual, myth, and the sacred calendar. Ritual, what bodies know. Religion is a choreography before it is a creed. Our bodies learn a faith by what they do. Judaism. Shabbat slows the week into a sanctuary in time. Lighting candles, blessing wine and bread, ceasing from labor, each act reteaches freedom. We are not slaves. Passover makes memory edible. Matzah crunches the haste of Exodus. Questions at the Seder table induct the young into a story of liberation. Yom Kippur gathers the community for teshuvah, return. Fasting, confession, reparations, and forgiveness become the grammar of accountability. Rituals of kashrut, dietary laws, train mindfulness at the market and the table. Mikveh, ritual immersion, treats water as a threshold. Christianity. Two sacraments stand as the common minimum across most churches: baptism and Eucharist. In baptism, one dies and rises with Christ. In Eucharist, bread and wine become, metaphorically, mystically, sacramentally, participation in divine life. The year turns. Advent waits. Christmas celebrates. Lent examines. Easter rejoices. Pentecost sends. Practices like confession, anointing of the sick, and foot washing, in some traditions, make grace tactile. Pilgrimages, Rome, Compostela, Jerusalem, continue to texture the Christian map. Islam, 5 pillars bind belief to time, body, and community. Shahada, the testimony, anchors identity. Salat, the 5 daily prayers, orient a life to cycles of sun and shadow. Ablutions, wudu, tie cleanliness to attentiveness. Zakat, alms, links wealth to responsibility. Sawm, fasting in Ramadan, renders hunger into empathy and discipline. Broken by the joy of Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca, compresses universal human pilgrimage into days of walking, circling, standing, and stoning, rituals of humility, remembrance, and renunciation. Hindu traditions, daily puja at home altars, temple darshan, seeing the deity and being seen, and vratas, vows, weave devotion with routine. The Kumbh Mela, at the confluence of rivers deemed holy, gathers millions for snana, ritual bathing, as a collective rebirth. Yoga in its classical sense, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, is a disciplined path aimed at liberation, even as modern yoga often emphasizes posture and breath for well-being. Weddings, thread ceremonies, and funeral rites anchor persons in community cycles. Buddhism, the Uposatha days mark communal confession and renewal. Vesak celebrates the Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and passing. Monastics observe Vinaya rules. Lay people keep precepts. not killing, not stealing, avoiding sexual misconduct, truthful speech, refraining from intoxicants. Meditation, from shamatha, calming, to vipassana, insight, from koan work in Zen to deity yoga in Vajrayana, cultivates attention, compassion, and wisdom. Chanting sutras, bowing, lighting lamps, and offering flowers and incense bring the body into the Dharma's training. Jainism. Rituals are exacting, designed to minimize harm and purify intention. Paryusana concentrates confession, fasting, and forgiveness. Pratikraman is a regular practice of reviewing and repenting faults. Diet is a daily vow of ahimsa. Many Jains are strict vegetarians or vegans and avoid root vegetables to prevent killing entire plants. Ritual care extends to sweeping paths to spare insects. Some monastics wear muhapati, mouth coverings, to avoid harming tiny life through breath. Sikhism, kirtan, devotional singing, and path, scripture recitation, bathe the mind in the Gurbani. The langar, a free communal meal, enacts equality. All sit on the floor, rich and poor, rulers and farmers. Savor, service, makes love practical. Cooking, cleaning, disaster relief. Vaisakhi marks the founding of the Khalsa. The 5 Ks, articles of faith, become wearable reminders of identity and discipline. Taoist and Confucian practices. Taoist Jiao rites seek to renew harmony between community and cosmos. New Year and Ghost Festival observances blur lines between Taoist, Buddhist, and folk strands. In Confucian practice, ancestral rites keep gratitude embodied. The Qingming festival beckons families to clean graves, offer food and paper goods, and maintain bonds with the dead. Etiquette, is not stuffiness, it is respect choreographed. Zoroastrianism. Fire temples keep flames tended as symbols of Asher truth order. Seasonal festivals, Nowruz, the New Year, Gahambars, Merigan, Sadeh, celebrate creation, justice, and light. Purity laws direct care for water, earth, and fire. Historically, exposure of the dead in darkness, towers of silence, avoided contaminating elements, though practices adapt in diaspora. Bahá'í and newer movements. Baha'i communities gather for 19-day feasts combining worship, consultation, and fellowship. The fast, sunrise to sunset for 19 days, aligns spiritual discipline with calendrical beauty. Nowruz brings a spring of unity. LDS General Conference becomes a semi-annual ritual of teaching and belonging. Jehovah's Witnesses commemorate the memorial of Christ's death. Humanists craft weddings and funerals that honor dignity without theological claims. Wiccans move through the wheel of the year, marking solstices, equinoxes, and cross-quarter days with seasonal rites. What ritual teaches? Ritual is memory with muscle. It distributes theology across the week, puts bodies in rooms with other bodies, and makes ethics tangible. Rest, fast, share, sing, wash, bless, bury, feed. Myth, stories that make sense of time. Myth is not a failed newspaper report, it is a map of meaning. Floods, gardens, cosmic trees, sacred mountains recur because humans need to locate themselves in a living order. Myths place us between above and below, before and after, we and they. They do not merely describe, they prescribe who gets to rule, what counts as sacred, why suffering happens. Myths may be held literally, symbolically, or both. In any case, they give ritual a script and ethics a story. Consider the flood stories, from Mesopotamia to India to the Americas. They warn about hubris, validate moral resets, and explain why the world feels both gifted and fragile. Or sacred mountains, Sinai, Kailasa, Fuji, stage vertical intimacy between human and divine. A cosmic tree, Yggdrasil in Norse lore, the Ashvatha in Indian thought, roots heaven in earth and branches time into being. Such images train the imagination to expect meaning in matter. Calendars. Time braided. Calendars are theologies you can hang on the wall. Lunar, solar, lunisolar. Traditions braid cosmic cycles with social memory. Determining the date of Easter requires astronomy. Ramadan moves through seasons because the Islamic calendar is purely lunar. Jewish months dance between moon and sun. Buddhist, Hindu, and Daoist, Confucian calendars layer regional astronomical calculations with imperial histories and local harvests. The point is less precision than participation. Feasts distribute fasting and feasting, intensify attention, and democratize theology. Anyone with a calendar can live a doctrine. A comparative note. Calendars generate solidarity across distance. When millions break the fast at sunset in Ramadan, or light candles for Diwali, or greet the new year at Nowruz, a dispersed people becomes a synchronous people. Time is stitched into a shawl that warms the diaspora. 3. Ethics and the Golden Rule. The shared intuition. Across cultures, a maxim glows. Confucius. Do not impose on others what you do not desire for yourself. Hillel. What is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. Jesus. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Islamic hadith. None of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. Mahabharata. Do not do to others what would cause you pain. Buddhism. Cultivate karuna, compassion, and metta, loving kindness, toward all beings. Jainism. Ahimsa widens the moral circle to every life form. Zoroastrianism. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Sikhism. Pray for Sarbat Dabala, the welfare of all. Ubuntu in African philosophies. I am because we are. Humanism. Minimize harm, maximize flourishing with reason and empathy. Think of the Golden Rule as an algorithm for empathy. Swap places in imagination, test your action, adjust. How communities grow ethics. Ethics are grown, not just known. Traditions cultivate character through practices, stories, and laws. Judaism orders life with mitzvot, commandments that sanctify the ordinary. Halakha, the way, emerges from a living conversation, texts, responsibilities, and new circumstances braided through responsa. Lashon hara, guarding speech, and tzedakah, just giving, shape social texture. Shabbat becomes social justice. One day a week, power structures pause. Christianity speaks of virtues, faith, hope, love, flanked by cardinal virtues, prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance. The Sermon on the Mount bends the arc toward mercy. Catholic social teaching articulates the common good, solidarity, subsidiarity, and preferential option for the poor. Orthodox emphases on theosis frame ethics as participation in divine love. Many Protestant streams highlight vocation, conscience, and grace-fueled action. Islam articulates shari'ah not simply as law, but as path, a way to water. Jurisprudence, fiqh, interprets texts for changing contexts, and the maqasid, objectives of the law, protecting faith, life, intellect, lineage, property, and dignity, among lists, offer a compass. Zakat institutionalizes redistribution. Riba, usury, restrictions, and zakat al-fitr, alms at Ramadan's end, tie piety to economic ethics. Ihsan, doing what is beautiful, pushes beyond bare compliance to generosity. Hindu ethics coil around dharma, duty, right order, contextualized by stage of life and social role. Philosophical schools and reform movements wrestle with caste, gender, and non-violence. Ahimsa rises in certain currents, inspired by texts like the Gita interpreted in diverse ways. Gandhian satyagraha, truth force, translates spiritual vows into political method. Ambedkarit critiques press for caste abolition and equality under a new constitutional dharma. Buddhist ethics cultivate intention and attention. The Eightfold Path integrates right view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. Right livelihood warns against trades in weapons, living beings, meat, intoxicants, and poisons, Theravada lists. Engaged Buddhism applies compassion to social injustice, war, and climate distress. Jain ethics intensify ahimsa to microscopic care. Vegetarianism, veganism, business practices avoiding harm, and aparigraha, non-possessiveness, counter greed. Anekantavada, the doctrine of many-sidedness, cultivates intellectual humility. No single perspective exhausts truth. Therefore, tolerance is a moral necessity. Sikh ethics condensed to three pillars. Naam Japna, remember the name. Kirat Karni, earn an honest living. Van Chakna, share what you earn. Resist the five thieves, lust, anger, greed, attachment, pride. Practice savor. Armed with kirpan as a symbol, the Khalsa bears witness to protecting the weak. Spiritual discipline married to social courage. Taoist ethics lean toward Wu Wei, effortless action aligned with the Tao. Simplicity, non-contention, and compassion become political and personal virtues. Confucian ethics center on Ren, humaneness, Huaiyai, rightness, Lai, ritual propriety, Ji, wisdom, Xin, trustworthiness. The Junzi, exemplary person, embodies harmony in family and state. Zoroastrian ethics align with Asha, truth, order, against Dr Yuj, lie, disorder. Truth-telling, environmental cleanliness, and industriousness are religious acts. One honors the elements by not polluting them. Ecology becomes liturgy. Indigenous ethics ritualize reciprocity. Take, give back, hunt, thank, plant, sing. Decision-making often considers 7 generations forward. Wrongdoing is remedied by restoration more than retribution, seeking to repair bonds among people and with land. Baha'i ethics stress human unity, equality of women and men, education for all, and consultation as a spiritual practice of collective decision-making. Extremes of wealth and poverty are addressed as moral failures of structure, not just of individuals. Humanist ethics draw on rights, reason, and empathy. Some blend deontological commitments, dignity, autonomy, with utilitarian concern for outcomes, and with virtue cultivation informed by psychology. The horizon is flourishing in one world, where ethics diverge. Grounding. Some communities ground ethics in revelation, divine command, covenant, prophetic teaching. Others emphasize virtue grown by habit and role or consequences measured by suffering and well-being. In practice, most traditions blend these sources, but they weight them differently, which affects decision-making when norms conflict. Purity and power. Views on sex, food, gender, caste, class, family, dress, and violence diverge sharply. Some argue for continuity with inherited boundaries. Others advocate reform, citing the tradition's own deepest values. Debates about women's leadership, LGBTQ+ inclusion, and marriage show how communities navigate between scripture, experience, and conscience. The point in comparison is not to adjudicate, but to see how reasoning works within a tradition. Violence and non-violence. From just war theories in Christianity and Islam to ahimsa commitments in Jainism and strands of Buddhism and Hinduism, to miri piri, spiritual temporal sovereignty, in Sikhism, communities justify, limit, or reject force. Zoroastrians valorize truth's defense. Daoists incline to non-contention. Indigenous protocols may sacralize the warrior's role within a larger balance. Contemporary questions, policing, protest, revolution, pull on old threads in new contexts. Economics, from biblical jubilee ideals to zakat, dana, generosity, siva, and da'at of fair trade, religions tie money to meaning, but propose different ceilings and floors, caps on interest, obligations of almsgiving, expectations about inheritance, land, and labor. A practical convergence. When houses of worship collaborate in hunger relief, disaster response, hospital care, or environmental stewardship, shared virtues, honesty, compassion, fairness, often outperform doctrinal disagreements. Interfaith food banks, clinics, and reforestation projects become laboratories of civic friendship. The golden rule walks on 2 feet: empathy and institution. 4. Mysticism, the universal experience. What seekers report. Across traditions, voices return from silence carrying similar notes, a sense of unity or interconnection, God filling all, or all things shimmering as one field. Ineffability, language strains, metaphors reach for what exceeds them, a noetic quality. It knew. I saw, not by the eyes, but by awareness. Transformation, not just a high, but an enduring reconfiguration of compassion, fear, or attachment. Sufi poetry sings of fana, annihilation of the self, and baka, abiding in God. Zikr, remembrance, turns the heart like a mill around the name. Christian contemplatives move through purgation, illumination, union. Hesychasts still the breath with the Jesus prayer. Quakers wait in the inner light. Advaita Vedanta declares, Tat Tvam Asi, you are that, and reports non-dual realization. Bhakti mystics ache for the beloved. Tantric yogas harness breath and visualization. Buddhist paths cultivate jhana absorptions and vipassana insights. Zen names sudden seeing satori. Dzogchen points to Rigpa, the naked awareness already present. Taoist adepts refine ki through Nidin, inner alchemy. Kabbalah contemplates Ein Sof, the limitless. Hasidim seek Devakut, cleaving to God in dance and deed. Indigenous practitioners speak of vision quests, sweat lodges, and plant teachers, ways of knowing that braid body, land, and spirit. A shared caution arises from within these lineages. Don't chase fireworks, seek the fruit, humility, patience, justice. Experiences without ethics risk spiritual bypass, using transcendence to skip the hard work of repair. Same summit, many paths, or many summits. Perennialists hear one music on many instruments. The mystic's core contact is with a single real, named God, Brahman, Sunyata, the Tao, and subsequently translated by culture. Constructivists answer that we never meet the real naked. Our doctrine, language, and practice shape the experience itself. The Trinity, Shunyata, and Ein Sof are not interchangeable peaks. They are different mountains. A middle view notices family resemblances alongside irreducible frames. Common phenomenology, silence, unity, love, recurs. Interpretation and training pattern what is sought and found. Neuroscience adds another lens. Praying nuns and meditating monks show overlapping brain patterns, less chatter in self-referential networks, more integration in attention circuits, but scans cannot decide metaphysical questions. They can, however, test outcomes. Long-term contemplatives often show increased empathy, stress resilience, and pro-social behavior. Why it matters. Mystical practice is a laboratory for compassion. Whether the summit is God, non-duality, emptiness, or silence, many who climb come down with softer egos and larger circles of care. Communities have learned to judge claims by fruits. Does this practice make you kinder, more truthful, more courageous? If not, back to the cushion, the pew, the mat, the drum. A final note. Mystical experiences can be destabilizing. Traditions often pair them with mentors, rules, and service to turn peaks into plains of daily love. 5. Perennial philosophy versus irreducible difference. The case for one spring. Shared moral maxims, analogous contemplative fruits, and recurring symbols suggest a deep grammar of the sacred. The perennial claim, one source, many outflows. Think of a white light refracting through prisms, producing the colors of the world's faiths. The golden rule, compassion practices, reverence for life, and experiences of radical unity hint that the heart of religion beats the same in many chests. The case for many watersheds. Yet theologies disagree about what is ultimately real: a personal God who speaks and commands, a non-self insight dissolving the subject, nature's way as spontaneous order. They disagree about how salvation liberation works: grace or self-cultivation, faith or wisdom, sacrament or meditation, and about who counts as neighbor, covenantal insider, all sentient beings, or cosmic kin. These are not surface variations, they are load-bearing beams. Moreover, ethics sometimes diverge sharply on war and peace, sex and family, money and power. The perennial lens can blur these differences, producing a lowest common denominator spirituality that satisfies comparisons but betrays communities. A compass for comparison. Humility. Begin by letting each tradition explain itself in its own best voice. Listen to insiders, especially those who disagree with each other charitably. Precision. Name both overlaps and fault lines. No mush. Avoid false equivalencies. X is basically Y. Usefulness. Ask what work an idea or practice does. Does it grow honesty, courage, mercy? Does it heal? Civic pact. In shared spaces, we needn't settle metaphysics to protect conscience, dignity, and peace. A pluralistic society can thrive on procedural agreements, rights, responsibilities, while people follow different ultimate visions. Translation ethic. When borrowing across traditions, yoga in a gym, mindfulness in a clinic, a smudge in a classroom, seek consent, context, and credit. Honor lineages. Don't strip sacred things of their guardrails. A working metaphor. Think constellations, not a single star. Traditions light different points. Humans draw shapes between them. Some patterns line up for many viewers, golden rule or grief work. Others depend on where you stand. Under a different sky, or with different stories, you will connect the dots differently. The skill is not to insist your Orion is everyone's, but to learn how others are finding their way by the same stars. Interludes. Knots within knots. To deepen our 5 knots, a few brief interludes, not new categories, but tighter weaves. Interlude. A. The problem of suffering. Every tradition faces the scandal of pain. In Abrahamic thought, suffering is passed through free will, testing, discipline, or mystery. Laments demand justice even from God. In Buddhism, suffering, dukkha, is the teacher. Craving is identified as cause. The path offers a cure. In Hindu philosophies, karma and dharma interpret sorrow without fatalism. Bhakti offers companionship with the divine in sorrow. Jnana offers insight into the unreality of the separate self. Jains trace suffering to karmic accretions. Liberation removes the cause. Sikh tradition counsels accepting hukum while resisting injustice. Suffering neither romanticized nor ignored. Daoist and Confucian texts guide adaptation and integrity in changing fortune. Indigenous lifeways narrate suffering within cycles of loss and renewal, often healing through community and ceremony. Humanists refuse cosmic reasons, seeking human ones, preventable causes to be addressed by science and solidarity. The comparative gift: move from why me to what next, from speculation to compassionate action. Interlude. B. Authority and interpretation. Who decides what a tradition teaches? Scripture, Torah, Bible, Quran, Vedas, Guru Granth Sahib, Agamas, Avesta, Analects, Sutras, meets commentary and community. Structures vary: rabbis, magisterium, ulama, sangha, akara, lineages, panth, councils, elders. Modernity adds new interpretive communities, diaspora networks, online forums, academies. 2 habits help across the board: charitable reading of others and self-critique within one's home. Interlude. C. Sacred space and pilgrimage. Spaces teach theology. mountains, Sinai, Athos, Kailasa, rivers, Jordan, Ganges, cities, Jerusalem, Mecca, Varanasi, Amritsar, Lhasa, are texts read with feet. Pilgrimage compresses a life. Departure, ordeal, encounter, return. The lesson: the heart can change at 3 miles an hour. Interlude. D. Art, sound, and silence. Beauty evangelizes. Calligraphy in Islam sanctifies word and geometry. Icons in Orthodoxy become windows. Bhajans and kirtans sing love. Gamelan and temple bells pace breath. Zen gardens prune meaning. Navajo sand paintings heal, then return to dust. Silence, too, is an art. Quaker meeting, zazen, a mosque before dawn. Sometimes the most truthful sound is the space around it. Putting it together, comparative case studies. Let's test the weave with 3 miniature comparisons. 1. Fasting. Islam in Ramadan. Dawn to sunset. Abstention resets empathy and discipline. Community breaks the fast together. Buddhists may take up uposatha, fasts, or abstain after noon. The aim is clarity and restraint. Jains practice rigorous fasts, sometimes long, to polish intention and detach from desire. Christians observe Lenten fasts, varied by tradition, to participate in Christ's journey and to reorder appetite. Hindus keep vratas aligned with deities or days. The logic blends devotion, self-control, and calendrical rhythm. Sikhs generally do not emphasize fasting. Seva and remembrance are preferred disciplines. Comparative note: the what and why differ, but fasting often trains freedom from compulsion, solidarity with the hungry, and mindful gratitude. 2. Speech ethics. Judaism polices lashon hara, gossip and slander, more strictly than many modern legal systems do. Buddhism codifies right speech, truthful, helpful, timely, and kindly delivered. Islam teaches guarding the tongue. The Prophet's example elevates discretion and honesty. Confucian thought values cheng, sincerity, and fitting words to roles. Comparative note: words build worlds. Traditions converge on restraining speech for the sake of community trust. 3. Environmental care. Zoroastrian purity laws respect elements as sacred. Indigenous reciprocity rituals embed conservation in ceremony. Jain and many Buddhist, Hindu streams extend moral concern to animals and ecosystems. Abrahamic faiths articulate stewardship. The earth as trust, amana, garden to tend, not mine to strip. Comparative note: while cosmologies differ, an increasingly shared ethic sees the earth not as resource alone, but as neighbor. Practical guides for listeners. Because this series is for ears as well as ideas, a few practices you can try, adapted with respect, not as replacements for rooted forms. Calendar mindfulness. Choose 1 day a week. Call it your Sabbath experiment to step off the productivity wheel. Turn devices off for an hour. Walk. Eat with others. Notice the moral mood that rest produces. Grief ritual. Write a letter to someone you lost, as many traditions encourage. Light a candle. Sit in silence. Read it aloud. Notice what the body knows. Speech audit. For 3 days, track your speech using the Buddhist fourfold test: true, helpful, timely, kind. Pair it with Jewish wariness about gossip. What changes? Mini fast. Skip 1 meal each week and donate its value to a hunger relief organization. Let hunger teach empathy. Contemplative minute. Learn a 1-minute practice from any contemplative stream. Breath prayer, meta phrases: may I be safe, may you be safe, or simply counting slow breaths to 5. The aim is tender attention, not achievement. Reciprocity act. Return something to the land that sustains you. Plant native species, clean a stream, or leave part of your garden wild. Offer it in thanks, as Indigenous protocols teach. These are not substitutes for deep discipleship in any path. They are bridges. Ways to feel how practice shapes perception. Epilogue. The thread that doesn't break. We began with 3 questions: origin, destiny, conduct, and found not a single answer, but a sturdy braid: story, practice, and virtue. Story tells us we are not alone. Practice trains us to remember it. Virtue proves it to our neighbors. Comparison is not a tournament. It is a way of keeping company with the human attempt to live meaningfully under a vast sky. We listened to accounts of beginnings, decreed, breathed, unfolded, or emergent. We faced endings, judgment, renewal, release, transformation, legacy. We followed rituals that make wisdom muscle memory. We heard myths that encode maps. We recognized a family of ethical intuitions without denying household rules. We honored the peaks and plateaus of contemplation, and we walked the fault lines between one spring and many watersheds. If you carry one image away, let it be the night sky of the child. Each tradition is a constellation drawn between shimmering points of wonder, fear, love, and loss. The shapes differ, the stars are shared. The point is not to redraw someone else's heavens, but to learn how they navigate, so that when your neighbor is lost, you can point to a star they trust. When the child asks again, "Where did all this come from? What happens when we die? How should I live?" You will have many answers and one task: to live yours well enough that someone else can breathe easier in its light. And if, along the way, you learn to see your neighbor's light not as a threat, but as another flame in the long human vigil against the dark, then this comparison has done its work.